Okay. My 4-function wireless remote control kit will fit not only the Yamaha EF6300, but it will fit the Yamaha EF4500. If there are any differences, I'll go over those differences during the installation process. At any rate, your kit will come in a box. Go ahead and pull the parts out. On the Yamaha 6300 kit, there are not a lot of separate pieces. This is the radio system itself. These are the two key fobs. The first step to installing it is to go ahead and pull the front cover off. The front cover is fastened by 2 Phillips head screws with shoulders that go into the very bottom of the cover. You'll note that these screws have shoulders on them with no thread. After you take the 2 screws out, the cover simply snaps in place. There are 4 snaps, right here, 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 and here. And then these 2 tabs that tuck into the top. So you'll snap it back in place and just put the screws on when you've completed the installation. This particular generator also has my remote fuel kit installed. You can tell by the pulse port going into the valve cover, as well as the fuel fitting going into the top. My radio kit and my extended run fuel kit do not interfere with each other in any way, shape, or form. First step is to turn the fuel selector valve to the off position and note where you left it, because when you put the panel on, you need to make sure that that switch is in the same position it was, because otherwise the knob will not function correctly. Go ahead and pull the self-tapping screws out of the cover. I pull the bottom screws out first so that the top of the cover will hang from the top screws, and I like to end up with one of the 2 center top screws being the last one to remove. Go ahead and set those screws out of the way. Then just support the cover lightly with your hand. Get ready to take the last screw out. Let me show you the fuel selector valve real quickly. You'll notice that there is a gray tab that slides into a groove in the back of the fuel selector valve. And that's why you want to set the fuel selector valve in the off position and remember that it was in the off position, so when you go back, put the thing back together, that tab will drop into the selector valve knob without a lot of hassle. The cover will hang from the wiring harness neatly. The first step is there is a grommet below the hour meter and power gauge. Go ahead and pop the grommet out. It'll look like this from the factory. Go ahead and remove the rubber grommet, set it off the side. you will be reusing that. I have already cut a notch 6 millimeters wide in the bottom of this electrical box. The way to do it is to take just a hacksaw blade and cut 2 slices 6 millimeters apart, and that makes a groove for you to feed the wires through so that you're not fumbling trying to fit the relay sockets through that small hole. Take the remote control radio assembly, remove the retainer that's around the antenna wire. You can stick the antenna base to anything that's steel. You could either use the gas cap, which is ultimately where it's going to be placed. Put the radio right down here on top of the evaporative emissions canister. We'll be mounting it solidly at a later point. Feed the wiring harness through the slot, and then lay the wires along the top of the control panel. These 2 plugs are used to intercept the ignition harness. The ignition switch has this plug right here. Open up the plug, take my harness, plug Yamaha's mother harness into one side, take the other plug on my harness, and plug it into the ignition switch itself. At this point, you'd be set up to where you would have your start and stop functions already. However, if you purchase one of my kits, you'd probably like it to do all the functions that it's capable of, which would include the toggling in and out of economy mode and turning the outlet on and off by remote control. This relay is what controls the fuel kill solenoid. Lay this right between the 240 volt outlet and the 30 amp 120 volt outlet, and it just lays in like this. The only reason why I position it there is because there's plenty of room for it and it doesn't interfere with anything. This relay is what controls the outlet on and off function, and I slide that down between the 30 amp 120 volt and the 220 amp 120 volt outlets. And now where your choices come in. I usually set these up to where the relay, or button 4 on the remote, is capable of toggling the 20 amp outlet on the Yamaha in and out or on and off. On all my other kits, you can split the 20 amp outlets. You can turn on just one or the other. Yamaha's 6300 and 4500 do not allow you to split the outlets. So if you hook my relay in, you would shut off both of the 20 amp outlets, or you could use it to shut off the 30 amp outlet. It's possible to use it to shut off the 30 amp 120 volt. It's possible to use it to shut off the 240 volt outlet. Although I don't recommend it, I will tell you how to do it. There are 2 wires coming out of the relay that you'll be able to take advantage of. If you're wanting to turn on and off the 220 amp outlets, you'll notice that there are 2 wires going to the relay. The wire on your right here goes into the main harness. The one on the left goes to the outlets, and that's the one we will intercept. So what we're going to do is remove the wire that Yamaha placed here. One half is just a flag terminal that pushes onto the back of the circuit breaker. The other end of the wire is a Phillips head screw retained onto the bottom of the outlet. and it uses an open ring terminal. And as you can see, my kit has one open ring terminal and one flag type 1/4 inch spade connector. So you'll hook the blue wire to the back of the relay by pushing this spade connector onto the relay, and the red wire will slide down and hook it over the Phillips head screw on the back of the outlet. If you come around here and shine it up from the bottom, you may get a better view. This wire is the one that we're just sliding on, and as you can see, there's a Phillips head screw going in the bottom. Okay, let me tighten that screw down. Then, if you would prefer to have been able to turn on and off the 30 amp outlet, you will have left this wire right where it was. Don't intercept that. Come over to the 30 amp outlet and you'll see that the black wire goes into the main harness, plugs onto a circuit breaker. You would unplug the red with the blue tracer from the circuit breaker, plug my blue wire with the spade terminal onto this end of the circuit breaker, undo the other end of the wire, which goes to this terminal on the 30 amp outlet, and it's held in place by a Phillips head screw, and it goes to an open ring terminal. You'd put the red wire from my kit to this end. If for some reason you did wish to go to the 240 volt outlet, do not intercept the neutral or the ground. You would have to intercept either the A or the B leg on the 240 volt. My recommendation would be to intercept the red with the white tracer. You'll notice that that does not have a circuit breaker to it. It comes directly from the mother harness. So you'd have to clip this end off and clip the end with my flag terminal off, and you could use a splice connector to connect the red with the white tracer coming out of the mother harness to my blue, and then put my red with the ring terminal onto this red wire. I don't recommend it. However, if that is your goal, that's how you'd go about doing it. This last relay is what I use to toggle it in and out of economy mode. If you look, the economy mode switch is right here, and you've got two pin connectors that plug into the back of it. I'm going to go ahead and unplug those 2 pin connectors. The one that was at the bottom has a red and a black wire. And the one that was at the top has the wires with the yellow tracer on them. So what I'm going to do is, coming out of my kit, you'll notice that there are 2 yellow wires and 2 orange wires. The 2 yellow wires cannot be interchanged with the 2 orange wires. So I'm going to use the 2 yellow wires to intercept the bottom plug. You'll see there are 2 male 0.187 spade connectors and 2 female 0.187 spade connectors. So I'm going to put the 2 female connectors on the bottom 2 pins of the switch, and the 2 male connectors are going to be plugged into the plug that used to plug into the bottom 2 plugs on the switch. Incidentally, you'll notice that the male spade connectors are bent just slightly, and that's to make sure it gets a good connection into the Yamaha wiring harness. If, when you push it together, if you don't feel a good tight connection, pull it out and just bend them just a little bit more, and I'll show you how to do that real quickly here. Just take a pair of needle nose pliers and just put a slight bend into it, nothing severe. Then the two female connectors go to the two bottom spades on the switch. And now you have two orange wires coming out. The two orange wires have male 187 spades and the female 187 spades. And it's the same situation on this. Take the connector that used to go to the top two pins, connect my harness to that, then go to the back of the switch, okay. Can you see it with the camera now? The switch has two orange wires. They go to the top two pins, and the yellow wires go to the bottom two pins. And the two yellow wires go to one of these plugs. The two orange wires, this one just pulled loose on me. Okay, it's not really as tight as I'd like it to be. Take the needle nose pliers, bend that just a little bit more. Okay. Now we have to try and lay these wires in such a way that they will fit under the lip of this, because if they hit on top of this lip, they'll get caught between the metal case and that housing. There's quite a bit of stuff going on in here. Start taking some of the zip ties that are going to come included in the kit. I'm going to put the first zip tie around both of the yellow wires and both of the red wires and the Yamaha harness that goes to the indicator lights. And what that should do is keep the relay from getting caught on the indicator panel or dropping down when you put it all into place. I take another tie wrap my main harness to the red and blue wire. Coming from that relay, as well as the red wire that is stock Yamaha, and that'll kind of hold this harness into place. And keep in mind, we're not trying to hold it in tight or anything like that. We just want to stay in position long enough for us to get this cover on without injuring anything. What I'm going to do is take some of the screws and just place them right here under the front of the generator, so I don't end up fumbling too much when I go to put the cover on. Now you can see the way the wires are trying to pop out on me. Come over to this side. Make sure that you tuck the main harness into the groove where that relay went, and then make sure that the main harness for my kit does not obstruct the indicator panel. The relay will lay under their indicator panel and above the indicator lights. Now when you slide this in, the relay for the outlets, which goes between the 20 and the 30, will have to be pushed up to where it goes into the electrical box. Okay. I'm going to put one screw into this end. At this point, just check the fuel selector valve and make sure that it is rotating correctly. Then over on this end, I'm going to take a flashlight, shine it in here. I've got to lift up on my relay just a little bit so that this panel will cover nicely. Get another one of my screws. Just run your finger along the edge and make sure that the cover panel is coming down flush on top of the plastic housing. That way you know that there are no wires caught between them. Now just go along, make sure everything's in the correct position. Remember the grommet that we removed earlier? We will now fit it around my harness and back into the recess groove. I like to do it after I get the cover panel in place. If you wanted to put it on before the cover panel, go ahead. Personally, I like to be able to pull the harness down or push it up without any resistance from the grommet. In reality, there are no extra points for beauty, but since we're doing this on a video, I did want it to look right. So ultimately, the grommet will go right into the original place with my wiring harness down through it. You'll notice that on the back of the radio module, there's a piece of Velcro. There's another piece of Velcro loose in the kit. Peel the adhesive back off of it. Wrap the adhesive Velcro right around the evaporative emissions canister. Then place the radio right on the end of the emissions canister. The Velcro will hold it from shifting. You'll get a couple of large zip ties. Feed one of the large zip ties between the emissions canister and the metal bracket that it attaches to. That over the radio module also. At this point, it's not going anywhere unless, of course, the emissions canister comes loose. Then you've got the radio wire, or the antenna wire. Just tuck it inside the housing, and you'll notice that Yamaha, as a courtesy just to me, I'm sure that's why they did it, there are some fittings to run the antenna wire into. So you put it over one, under the center one, and then over the end one, right here. And then do the same thing on this position, so that now the antenna wire is held in place nicely. Take the front cover, take the antenna, pass it through the opening, tuck the two tabs into the slots. And what I do is allow the antenna wire to come out where it's not going to interfere with the outlets. Then remember, you've got 4 snaps. Just take your thumb and pop the snaps in. Then there's 2 screws that go into the bottom. Put the 2 screws in it. Then just go along and make sure that there are no places where the gasket that goes around here was crimped or rolled under, or anything else is obscured. If everything looks good, then we'll take it outside and test run it.